Have you ever stood in a place so old, so silent, that you could almost hear the past whispering to you? For climate researcher Mia Carter, that place was the Soren Glacier in Alaska. To the locals, it was a living entity, a keeper of memories. They called it the glacier that remembers. They said it held the echoes of every storm that had ever raged across its surface, the imprint of every footstep, the sound of every voice spoken in its presence. Mia, a scientist grounded in data and facts, was intrigued but skeptical. She was there to measure ice melt, not chase local folklore. Her mission was straightforward: deploy sensors, collect ice core samples, and analyze the accelerating melt rate. The Soren Glacier, like so many others, was a victim of our warming planet. Its retreat was a stark visual reminder of the climate crisis. But as Mia spent her first few days on the ice, she began to feel an unsettling presence. The wind whistling through the ice crevasses seemed to carry something more than just cold air. It sounded like voices, faint and distant, like a crowd murmuring just beyond the edge of hearing. At first, she dismissed it as an auditory illusion, a trick of the mind caused by the isolation and the vast empty landscape. It was probably just the ice shifting and groaning under its own immense weight. That's what she told herself anyway. One afternoon, while calibrating a sensor near a deep blue crevasse, the whispers grew clearer. They weren't just random sounds anymore. They had a cadence, a rhythm, like an ancient language she couldn't comprehend. Drawn by an unexplainable curiosity, she peered into the abyss. The ice inside glowed with an otherworldly light, layers of compressed time stacked one on top of the other. And then she saw it. Something dark was suspended in the ice, about 20 feet down. It wasn't a rock or a natural formation. It was man-made. With her heart pounding, she carefully rappelled down into the crevasse. The air grew colder, and the whispers seemed to come from the very walls of ice around her. As she got closer, the object came into focus. It was a wooden carving, exquisitely detailed. It depicted a spiral, a symbol she didn't recognize, surrounded by figures of animals and people. It was perfectly preserved, the wood looking as if it had been carved just yesterday, not trapped in ice for who knew how long. But it was what she saw next that made her breath catch in her throat. Just beside the carving, pressed against the ice wall, was the clear imprint of a human hand. A small hand, its fingers spread wide as if pushing against the ice one last time. It was a visceral, haunting connection to the past. This wasn't just an artifact. It was a person's final moment, frozen in time. Who were they? How long had they been here, locked away in this icy tomb? Shaken, Mia returned to her camp, the carving carefully wrapped and the image of the handprint burned into her mind. That night, the whispers were no longer just sounds. They were visions. As she slept, her dreams were filled with images that felt more like memories than fantasy. She saw a thriving village nestled in a green valley that must have existed long before the glacier advanced. She saw people with kind faces and intricate clothing, living in harmony with the land. They danced, they sang, they told stories around great bonfires. They were a tribe, a community, their lives intertwined with the mountains and the ice. She saw the handprint she'd found in the ice, but this time it belonged to a young girl with bright, curious eyes, pressing her palm against a thin sheet of newly formed ice, laughing. The glacier was showing her its memories. The local legends were true. The ice didn't just hold trapped air bubbles and sediment. It held life. It held stories. Over the next few days, the visions continued, becoming more vivid, more urgent. She saw the tribe's shaman, an old woman with a face as weathered as the mountains, placing the spiral carving into a small ice cave. It was an offering, a prayer to the spirit of the glacier, but the visions also took a dark turn. She saw the sky grow dark, the winters grow longer and colder. The glacier, once a distant, benevolent giant, began to advance relentlessly, swallowing the valley, their homes, their world. She witnessed their desperate struggle to survive, their retreat into the high mountains, their sorrow as they left their ancestral lands behind. The glacier was telling her the story of a lost people, a tribe erased by a changing climate thousands of years ago. Mia realized she had stumbled upon something extraordinary, a historical record unlike any other. This wasn't just data on past climate conditions. It was a human story of resilience and loss, communicated through the ice itself. But as the glacier shared its deepest secrets, it was also dying, The melting was accelerating at an alarming rate. During the day, the sound of cracking ice was constant, a symphony of destruction. Huge chunks of the glacier's face would break off and crash into the meltwater lake below, a process called calving. The giant was in its death throes, and with it, the memories it held were being lost forever, melting away into the ocean. One evening, as the sun set, casting a blood-orange glow on the ice, Mia stood at the glacier's edge. A massive section of the snout, where she'd first heard the whispers, began to groan and splinter. It was the heart of the glacier, the oldest part, and it was about to collapse. A final collective whisper rose from the ice, clearer than ever before. It was no longer a muddle of voices, but one unified message, spoken in a language she somehow understood in her soul. It said, "Tell our story." And then, with a deafening roar that shook the very ground beneath her, the entire section of the glacier collapsed into the water, sending a tidal wave across the lake. A cloud of ice dust filled the air, and when it cleared, the place where the visions had been strongest was gone. There was only silence. The whispers had faded. Mia stood there for a long time, tears streaming down her face, mourning a people she had never met but had come to know intimately. She held the wooden carving, the last physical remnant of the forgotten tribe. The glacier had given her a sacred trust. It had chosen her to be its voice, to share the memories it could no longer hold. She looked out at the broken, melting landscape. Her mission had changed. It was no longer just about collecting data on ice melt. It was about honoring a promise. She would tell their story. The wooden spiral became a symbol of this connection, a reminder that the ice holds more than just water, it holds our collective past. And as it disappears, we are not just losing a part of our planet, we are losing a part of ourselves. The story of the Soren Glacier is a ghost story for our time, a haunting reminder of what we stand to lose if we fail to act. It's a call to listen to the whispers of our planet before they fall silent forever. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content that explores the deep connections between humanity and our changing world.